That day, he gave me a little push, and I remember him holding me and saying, "This isn't how things are going to happen. There's something else," he said. "You asked for an alliance, and I bought you one. It was supposed to be a surprise, to happen on my birthday, but now I'm telling you. I come from a family of very strong women, and my father was a salesman, traveling all week and only coming back. That day, he pushed me up against the wall and held me close. He said, 'This isn't how things are going to happen. There's something else in the works,' he shouted. 'You asked for an alliance. I bought your alliance, and I was to be a surprise. It was supposed to happen on my birthday, but now I'm already telling you. I come from a family with very strong women. My father was a salesman, so he traveled all week and only came back on the weekends. I grew up with a very great paternal figure because I only saw my father on the weekends. My mother was always the head of the household. She touched everything, educated us, and created us. My father had a moment of depression and started using alcohol a lot. He was a little aggressive at home. I think I grew up in my adolescence, from 14 to 16 years old, seeing a lot of friction inside my father's house. He was always very nervous. I think we're going to stay here with his memory of how to receive love. For me, the masculine relationship was a real eye-opener. One day, I was sitting on the couch, and he was standing nearby, very nervous, screaming. My father didn't have much education, and my mother has 5 postgraduate studies because she's a teacher. My father only finished 4th grade, so we always had to. I think we're going to stay together. I think we're going to keep the memory of how we felt about each other alive. For me, this relationship was a big part of why I grew up so fast. One day, I was sitting on the couch, and my dad was standing nearby, looking really nervous and screaming. My mom had a lot of education. She was a teacher and had 5 postgraduate studies, while my dad only had a 4th grade education. So, in our house, he spoke. My mom said, "Why are you illiterate? You're unmeasured." In my relationship, I was sitting and my dad was shouting the same thing, "Just because I'm illiterate and you are much more studied than I am. Just because I didn't finish my courses." I was a snap, looking and talking. I'm in a relationship, trying to bring my dad back and be accepting of all his aggression. I'm so glad you asked about my relationship with my father. It was a bit of a difficult one, but I think there were some really important lessons to be learned. My father passed away quite suddenly from a heart attack when I was just 37, and I had a hard time saying goodbye. I couldn't even hug him. I think that's why I spent so much time in this relationship, trying to understand my father's attitudes. I wanted to keep the connection of love alive. I had a very quiet, normal teenage life. I was a very normal teenager. I enjoyed my adolescence. I had many friends. I studied hard. My family was full of strong women. My mother always prepared us for the world. I was always very independent. I think you ask yourself the same thing. All my friends will talk about the same thing. Carla has always been very self-assured. I was already 37 years old when I met. I really wanted to get married and have a family and children. I speak so that everything I got in my life is a result of my hard work and success at work, and to have my own independence. It was a dream that happened because my true dream was to have my family and children. I had always wanted to live in São Paulo, and I got a job in a multinational company, but it wasn't my dream. Then I was already 37 years old, and I really wanted to have my children and family. I had always wanted to have a family and children, and I was determined to find success in my career and independence. I had always wanted to live in São Paulo, and I had even applied to work for a multinational company there. But at 37, I had not yet achieved that dream. Then I met him on a relationship app. I was leaving at the time, and I was working on buying a little house with a man I was very in love with. Then he spoke to me. He said, "I sent you a message, but you didn't answer because I was already involved with someone else. I just wanted to listen to the promises he made." I remember that we went to lunch one day, and he was very charming. On Mother's Day, he told me, "Look, our family is not mine. My mom lives in Bahia, and her mom lives in Minas. Today is Mother's Day, so let's have lunch together. We'll have lunch for both of us, since we're alone here." I went to lunch with him, and when I got there, we started talking. He said, "I just want to work. I want to have my family. I want to build a lot. I want to stay in São Paulo." On Mother's Day, he told me, Hey, our family is not just mine. My mom lives in Bahia, and his mom lives in Minas. Today is Mother's Day, so let's have lunch together. We're on our own here, so let's do this for both of us. I went to lunch with him, and when I got there, we started talking. He said, I just work. I want to work. I want to have my family. I want to build a lot. I want to stay in Sao Paulo and make money, but then I want to leave all my dreams in the person who was in my front, but in my front. Then he said, I met on May 9th, and on June 4th, we were already dating. I had 3 meetings with him to ask me to date. It was all a lot fast, and everything was intense, right? I was certain that I had found my Prince Charming because he was a worker. He sold himself as a good son, a friend, a worried brother, and a good friend. Money was a big deal, but I was so caught up in my dreams for the person I had in mind that I didn't realize how much I was giving up. I met him on May 9th, and by June 4th, we were already dating. We had 3 really great meetings, and it all happened so fast. Everything was super intense, and I just knew I had found my Prince Charming. He was a hard worker, a good son, a great friend, and a really good brother. He was all about family and wanted to start his own family, and it was also light-hearted. We laughed a lot, and I could tell he was ambitious and wanted to grow and build things. I was in a really good place at the time. I was doing therapy and getting stronger every day, and I was at the gym working out and feeling great about my body. I had a lot of self-esteem. That is, it was all about family. He was head over heels for the idea of starting a family. It was all very light-hearted and fun. We laughed a lot. I could see that he was ambitious and wanted to grow. He wanted to build things. I really thought I was in a good place. I was doing therapy and getting stronger every day. I was at the gym, working out, and feeling great about my body. I had just won a promotion at work, and I felt like life was finally going to be great. I was talking about how I was at that stage. I was flying high. I thought I was in one of the best phases of my life. Then, he showed up with everything and everyone. Those dreams? I really thought I had found the person I was going to stay with for many years. I never thought it would separate us so much. I spent so much time with him that I really said no. I had just gotten a promotion at work, and I was on top of the world. I was in one of the best phases of my life, and I was flying high. Then, he showed up, and everything changed. I thought I had finally found the right person, and I was planning to stay with him for many years. I spent so much time with him, and I never thought that he would push me away. I wanted to give it our best shot. We started to leave, and then, on our 3rd date, he asked me to go on a date. I met him when I was very close to taking a vacation from work. I met him in June, and we fell in love in July. I went on a trip with some friends in June. I was 2 weeks away from the trip when I had a day where I came back from the trip. I arrived at his house, and he had a huge. I didn't want to end things. I wanted to give it our best shot. We started to leave, and then, on our 3rd date, he asked me to go on a date. I met him while I was on vacation from work in June. We fell in love in June. In July, I went on a trip with some friends. I was 2 weeks away from the trip when I had one day that I came back from the trip. I arrived at his house, and he had a huge bouquet. I had made a cold board, and I was waiting with wine and playing Ana Carolina in his house. It was so romantic. We had a very quiet start, and I had already been through some relationships. I think we were still a little scared at that time. I got a lot suspicious of that scenario. I looked and talked, and let me see how things were happening over time. But everything he told me, he fulfilled. I spoke like this sometimes at night. Tomorrow, I'm going to ask you for a coffee. The coffee was, I had made a cold board, and I was waiting with wine while playing Ana Carolina in his house. All romantic knows that, right? So, it was a very quiet start. I had already been in some relationships, and I think we were a little reserved at first. I looked at him and said, let me see how things are going. But he did everything he said he would. I said things like, tomorrow, I'm going to ask you for a coffee. The coffee was already there. I'm going to stop drinking. He stayed in. First, at the beginning of our relationship, he was 6 months without drinking. So we let time pass. I think no, I trusted the person who was there on the day. And then people. I remember something of one thing, not right from several. It is at first, he always spoke like this to me, oh, Love, you think it's good, or do you still need to improve something for me? I want to be the best for you, and I'm asking you to give your all to our relationship. I'm not going to play the no card. If you're great, that's all I need. You always asked me what I could do to improve, and over time, I learned that his friends knew my family. He met my family in Minas, and I spoke. I've had some previous relationships that didn't. I want to be the best for you, so I'm trying my best to give it my all in our relationship. I've tried my best to be open with you, and I'm really hoping you'll be open with me too. I've always asked you what I can do to improve, and over time, I've learned that it's important to be honest with myself and my family. I've had some relationships in the past that weren't very healthy, and I've had some moments where I've felt like I wasn't being my best self. But now, I'm trying to be more selective about who I bring home. I don't want to bring someone home out of obligation, and I'm glad we met and got to know each other before things got more serious. I was happy to take him to my mom, and I'm happy to say that my family is my world. I was working and had some dreams. I said, I think I will only bring him to my house when I understand that the person really is the person I want. I didn't want to bring him home by obligation. Then, when I met him, we went on a few dates. I saw that he was a nice person, and I was happy to take him to my mother to meet him. I said, it's my family that I have the most sacred in the world. You know, then I took him to meet my family. My family liked him. I knew right in the first moment that they liked him a lot. At a certain moment, he became right in our relationship. I stayed more at his house than at my house. I passed almost every weekend there, and on Monday I started going back on Friday and coming back on Sunday. Suddenly, I started coming back on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday. There was a day he said to me, look, I think you. Then I took him home, and my family immediately fell in love with him. I know, right? From the very first moment, they were head over heels. Over time, he became an integral part of our relationship, and I found myself spending more and more time at his place. Eventually, I started spending almost every weekend there, and by the end of the week, I was heading back to his place on Fridays. Then, all of a sudden, I started going back on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays, too. One day, he looked at me and said, I think you have dreams that are very similar to mine. We want to grow, we want to have our own family. Let's rent something together and start thinking about it. I was still very hesitant. I said, I think it's still too early. I live with my sister, and we've been together for 6 months. I met Elle in May, right before Christmas. Then, what happened at the end of the year? My family went to meet his family in the state, and then the dream was. We have dreams that are very similar, Ilya. We want to grow, we want to have our family. Let's rent something together already. Let's start thinking together. I was still very resistant. I said, I think it's still too early. I live with my sister, and we've been together for 6 months. I met Elle in May, right before Christmas. Then what happened? At the end of the year, my family went to meet his family in the state. Then the dream was. I spoke from the heart. I said, cool. I was very grateful to God. I went to the church right away. I was always very religious, and I speak as soon as I am not arrested in religious. I am very Christian. I believe a lot in God. My intimacy with it is very strong, so I always thank Him very much. For the first months, it was like that. He righted our family. I saw a safe haven there that gave us a place to follow. He started talking about renting an apartment. I said, thank you, God, for this wonderful life. I was always very religious, and I speak from the heart. As soon as I am not arrested in religious, I am very Christian. I believe a lot in God, and my intimacy with Him is very strong. So I always thank Him very much. It was like that in the first months. It was like our family. I met, and I saw a safe haven there that gave us a chance to follow. He started talking about renting an apartment, and we could live in a better place. There was an apartment that was very close to where he lived, and it was his dream to live there. One beautiful day, an apartment appeared for us to meet there. We went to the apartment, and he stayed dazzled. He has always started repeating these words. This will right? But then this was December. He returned to drink, and I said it wasn't just because of life. We moved to a bigger, better place, and there was an apartment very close to where he lived that was his dream, the place where he wanted to live. One beautiful day, an apartment appeared in this place for us to meet. We went to the apartment, and he was dazzled. He kept repeating, "This will right?" But then it was December, and he returned to drink. I think the masks started to fall slowly. This started to be given from January, February. I still lived with my sister, and he lived alone. We didn't live together yet. The masks started to fall, and a lot subtly. Before, I just received praise. I was the perfect woman, the smartest, coolest worker. Suddenly, my lipstick started to bother him. He said I was very ugly with lipstick on. He didn't like it whenever I passed. Sometimes, I'd try to give him a kiss, but he'd tell me not to. He said that wearing red lipstick made me look unattractive, and he was right. I stopped wearing it, and he started to like my clothes more. He said that I didn't dress well and that my clothes were ugly when we went out to meet his friends. He tried to control the clothes I was going to wear, and he said that wearing that outfit would make me look unattractive. She put on her jeans and something else, but that subtle tone in my ear, that he arrived. It wasn't an abusive tone, but a cautionary one, as if he had love in his voice. At first, it was similar to my own feelings. Sometimes, words can come out a bit exaggerated. But he spoke with a very quiet voice, and I trusted his opinions a lot, because in my head, I thought, we believe in the person who is on our side. We tend to see evil in people who are on our side, but we don't. I understood that as a soft form of love because the male figure I knew was a little more serious than the one I saw in my dreams. He was a very loving figure who praised my appearance and treated me like a princess. For me, that was not much different from what I already knew. I remember one thing that caused me a lot of discomfort. I remember the first time I felt uneasy. It was one of the first days of my new job, and I was working. I remember it was a Tuesday at 5 p.m. when my phone rang. It was him, calling from a bar. He was very drunk, and he was upset about something that had happened at work. He was having a hard time dealing with his emotions, so he stopped by a bar and started drinking. I first met him when I was a little tipsy. He asked me if I was at work, and I said I was about to leave. I went to his place, and I remember he was lying on the sofa with his phone in his hand. I went to bed and took his phone, and I saw that he had just received a message from a girl. I think she had written something like, I think. You know how it is when you're super excited. When I started dating him, I gave him all the passwords to my cell phone. I had 100 of them. I found that a little weird, but I entered the password and saw that he was in this bar. He had called this girl to go there. When I saw the photo of the girl, I saw that he had already told me that he worked with her during the week and had been praising her for me. I found that a little strange, but I understood that people do things differently sometimes. It was a little strange, but I said, how do I fight him now? While he was drunk. I put him to bed, and I slept there. The other day, when he woke up, I told him about the situation. Then, blinded by passion and love, he started talking. He really wanted to give a message to the girl, but that was for a cousin of a friend of his who was there in the bar with him. He showed me a photo of the boy. He wanted to introduce the girl to him, and he said the boy was single. I had the password for everything, so I felt like I was in control. He called me to pick him up, and I felt like I could trust him. I didn't think he would do anything like that. But then I found out that he knew what he was doing. I felt like I had to do something, and I did. I don't remember what happened after that, but it was a couple of weeks later. Then, there was a day. I had the passwords for everything, and he was the one who made me feel like I couldn't do anything without him. He called me to pick him up, and I thought, how could he do that? Then I found out that he knew I was going to get him what he wanted. I didn't even remember that situation anymore. 2 or 3 weeks passed, and then there was a day when I had his password. He put his Instagram password on his cell phone. I was sitting at work and exchanging messages with a girl. I called him to come home at night, and he came. I asked him about this girl. I said, look, I saw that you were exchanging messages with this girl. You didn't tell me that you were going to present her to one of your friends. He was very nervous and said, I had the passwords, and he had the Instagram. One day, I was working and chatting with a girl. I called him to come home that night, and he came. I asked him about this girl. I said, I saw you talking to this girl. You didn't tell me you were seeing her. He got nervous and said, women are all the same. I need security in my life. This wasn't how things happened. He wouldn't accept it. He always had suspicions about many women he talked to. He wouldn't change his lifestyle, and I wouldn't have to trust him. I said, I'm going to get these things and go. I don't want to. That was our first fight. I had this feeling that women were all the same, and that I needed security in my life. But that wasn't how things turned out. He had these suspicions about all the women he talked to, and he wasn't going to change his lifestyle. I told him I needed to trust him, but I didn't. That's when we first fought. I ended up staying with him for 3 weeks. After that, I stayed because I wanted to, not because I had to. Looking back, I think we were more in tune at the beginning of the relationship. We were still together even though I asked him to stop. He told me I shouldn't have done that. I could have listened to him, but I remember that he had a chance to try. I reacted to him. We had a really good run, and I thought I had a good handle on things. But then, out of the blue, he started acting weird. I thought I was right, so I followed my gut. But he came back all lovey-dovey, and he was as passionate as ever. We even went so far as to rent an apartment together in March, and then we moved in May. I had my heart set on getting engaged soon after moving in, and he was on board. But then, out of the blue, he started acting weird again. I really wanted to live in this apartment, so in March, it all worked out. I thought I was overreacting, so I didn't listen to my gut. But then, he came back all lovey-dovey and full of promises. We decided to rent an apartment together in March, and then we moved in May. The plan was to get engaged soon after I moved, so that meant that the apartment was planned around that. I really wanted to live in this apartment, so it worked out perfectly. Then, in May, we decided to change apartments. I was living with my sister at the time, and I had already said that I would only leave when she was ready. My plan was to move to an apartment in July. He changed in May, and my move was scheduled for July. On the day of my move, I loved it. He went home at night to help me because the other day, I was going to move at night. He didn't come home. I found out that he was in. I was planning to move in May, and he was planning to move in July. He changed his plans to May, and on the day of the move, I was thrilled with the apartment. He went home at night to help me, but he didn't answer me. I found out that he was at a friend's house, making barbecue, and I was there with this friend. I didn't answer him because I was busy. I barely spoke with you. I didn't even know I had to help you. I cancelled my move, and I didn't go there the other day. Despite our fight, I remember that I was very worried. I said, my God, as it's just that I'm going to do it now. I was at a friend's house, where he was making barbecue, and he didn't answer me. He said that a person had fought that week. I barely spoke with you because I didn't even know I had to help you. I didn't even know I had to help you. I cancelled my change. I didn't go there the other day, but even so, despite us fighting, I remember that I was very worried. I said, my God, as it's just that I'm going to do it now. I just stretched an apartment. The apartment is in my name. If I cancel this rental, I will have to pay a fine of almost $10,000. I got a lot of doubts, and he got many promises of improvement. He said this will not happen again. I didn't know. I thought you were fighting because you didn't need me. You didn't even talk to me today. Once I found myself exaggerating, I ended up coming back with him, only I still extended I'm worried because I'm not sure what to do. The apartment is in my name, and if I cancel the rental, I'll have to pay a fine of almost $10,000. I have a lot of doubts, and he has made many promises. He said this won't happen again, but I didn't know. I thought you were fighting because you didn't need me. You didn't even talk to me today. Once I found myself exaggerating, I ended up coming back with him, and I still extended my deadline. I said, for him, I need another time because we're a little stressed now. Let's let things happen. My deadline was in July, but it happened in September. This means that until he changes it, he will stay in May, and even my deadline, we stayed. Groom's was his birthday, and he called the whole family. We had a party to surprise me, and the engagement was to celebrate his birthday. The family came all the way here, and then I asked for a change of plans, explaining that we were feeling a bit stressed at the time. We decided to push back the date to September, which was actually my birthday month. I was a little surprised when he mentioned that he had a change of plans in May, but I was happy to support him. The whole family came to the party, and it was a really special celebration. I didn't know about the engagement, but he told me one day while we were out. He had decided to move in with his new girlfriend on May 2nd, and on May 9th, we would have been together for a year. Some friends had planned a dinner outing, so I went to the apartment to spend time with him. That day, he called some friends to have a barbecue at his new apartment around 6 or 7. I was so excited for this engagement, but I didn't know about it. One day, when he was a little tipsy, he told me what happened. He said he was moving on May 2nd and would be living in an apartment on May 9th. We had been friends for a year, and people had planned for us to go out to a restaurant. I went to the apartment to spend time with him. We were planning to go out at night, but that day, he called some friends to have a barbecue at his new apartment. It was about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. I was a little annoyed because I was working all day, and at home, I was working too. He was making barbecue, eating meat, and drinking beer. I felt a little annoyed. I went to get his attention. I said, "Look, we won't leave. We have boys, and it's not their time to go out." The people who were there left, and when they left, he stayed. It was the first time I saw him get aggressive. I was really bothered by the situation. I worked all day, and he worked all day at home, making barbecue, eating meat, and drinking beer. I got a little annoyed and went to get his attention. I said, "Look, we won't leave. We have time to go do something." The people who were there left, and when they did, he stayed. It was the first time he'd been aggressive. He was very nervous because he said it wasn't like things happened that I wasn't going to expel his friends from the house. On that day, he pushed me against the wall and held me. He said, "This isn't how things will happen. There is something else," he shouted. "You asked for an alliance. I bought your alliance, and it was supposed to be a surprise. It was supposed to happen on my birthday, but now I'm telling you I bought your." I was a little nervous because he said things wouldn't change. I wasn't going to kick his friends out of the house that day. He pushed me against the wall and held me. I remember him saying, "This isn't how things are going to happen. There's something else," he shouted. "You asked for a promise. I bought your promise, and it was going to be a surprise. It was supposed to happen on my birthday, but now I'm telling you I bought your." The promise is there on my birthday. On the day of my birthday, it will be the day of your engagement. That means when the engagement really happened. Unfortunately, I still filed with him after this extreme situation of violence. Wow, it's a little emotional when I remember that. Then, I remember that this day, I was very scared because I had never seen him so furious. He pushed me against a wall, and I'm tall, but he is much taller and stronger. I was scared too, because I tried to make things right in our relationship. I said, "Let's go out to celebrate our day." But I was scared of how he would react. I remember being very scared that day. I was running around, and he started screaming, "Ah, your engagement. You want so much of this clowning." I remember him shouting, "So this clowning? You want me? I bought your alliance, and it will be on the day of my birthday." I was scared too, because I tried to make things right with him. I said, "Let's go out and celebrate our day." I remember being very scared that day. I was overwhelmed with fear, and he started screaming, "Your engagement, you want so much. This clowning." I remember him shouting, "So this clowning, you want me? I bought your alliance, and it will be on the day of my birthday. That I will do. The world already knows." I put it to sleep. He was very drunk. He didn't drink with good people. He stayed drunk and boring, so I put him to sleep. I got all the things that were there at home, right in the apartment where we had rented. I didn't live there, but I lived there. I got all the things that we had: a gourmet balcony, so I cleaned the balcony. Only when he had these episodes of fury, I put him to sleep because he was very drunk. He didn't drink with good people, he drank and was boring, so I put him to sleep. I had everything we had at home right in the apartment where we had rented. I didn't live there, but I lived there. I had all of that, and we had a gourmet balcony, so I cleaned it. He only had these episodes of fury. I even believed in it because he always spoke to me like this. "Ah, I don't remember things. You know, I have a bad head. You know, I don't remember what I said." The other day, I woke up and told him what had happened. He had absurd remorse when he woke up. Or he pretended he had no remorse. At last, he didn't like me. He told me the things that had happened. Then I remember that I truly believed in it because he always spoke to me like this. "Ah, I don't remember things. You know, I have a bad head. I don't remember things you said." The other day, I woke up and told him what had happened. He woke up with absurd remorse. He pretended he had no recollection of it. At last, he didn't like me. He told me the things that had happened, and I remembered that I was sitting waiting for him for us. He said, "I don't want to talk about it," I said, then, "but I just want to bring the things you made." He was not receptive. I think he spent a week later. We sat down to talk about what happened. He said that I was drunk and that he didn't like the way I expelled his friends from the room. The next time, he would do it differently. That was not how I was sitting waiting for him, for us, Norsa. He said, "I don't want to talk about it," I said, "but I just want to bring the things you made." He didn't respond. I think you spent a week later, sitting down to talk about what happened. He said that I was drunk and that he didn't like the way I expelled his friends from the room. The next time, he said he would do it differently. I was amazed. I needed to be able to speak in a more quiet tone. Sometimes my tone was very inquisitive, and that scared him. I couldn't even say that, but he spoke about how I triggered a bad side of him. He asked me for forgiveness, saying that this was never going to happen again. "We are going to go to a ballroom with everything taut." When he handed me the ring, he said, "I should have done that." It amazed the wrath in it. I needed to be able to speak in a more quiet tone. Sometimes, my tone was very inquisitive, and that scared him. I couldn't even say that, but he spoke to me about it. I triggered a bad side of him. He asked me for forgiveness, saying that this was never going to happen again. "We are going to go to a ballroom with everything taut." When he handed me an alliance, everyone thought I didn't. I knew I already knew. Everyone pretended there was a relationship, pretended to be a surprise. I pretended that everything was wonderful, right? I took care of it, delivered everything better to my family, mainly right. I think it was some time later. Calm, eh? Soon after I moved to the apartment, I think we stayed calmly. Even my change. I changed myself alone to the apartment because he didn't help me. Nothing said that I wouldn't help me, because everyone thought I didn't know, but I did. I knew everything. I pretended there was a relationship, a surprise, and that everything was wonderful. I took care of it, delivered everything to my family, and made sure everything was right. I think it was some time later. Calm, eh? Soon after I moved to the apartment, I think we stayed calmly. Even my change. I changed myself alone to the apartment because he didn't help me. I thought he might hurt my feelings. Then I moved alone. I took everything inside my house, saying everything did not want to leave. I took things from my house because he said that my things were old and that he would not accept my things inside the new house. He would only accept his things and the things we would buy. So I took almost nothing but the things I really needed, my plants, my dogs, and my clothes. I put everything on a Saturday, and I woke up there. I was worried that this would upset him at work, so I decided to move out alone. I took everything I could with me, saying that I didn't want or need anything. I took my things with me because he said that my things were old and that he wouldn't accept them in our new house. He said that they would be his and the things we would buy. So, I took almost nothing but my plants, my dogs, and my clothes. I put everything on a Saturday, and I woke up in the apartment. I remember the boy who was helping me still spoke like this, but he said, "Girl, you are not renting. You will not live with the boy. Where is the boy who is here to help you?" I said, "Is he here to help you?" He said, "I will help you, but okay." This brings back a lot of memories of my first childhood. We changed homes 6 times, and I lived with my sisters and my mother. My father was never there because he was busy. I remember when the boy of change, the one who was helping me, spoke like this, "Girl, you are not renting. You will not live with the boy. Where is the boy who is here to help you?" I said, "Is he here to help you?" He said, "Okay, but that is a lot of memory of my first childhood." We changed homes 6 times, none of which were my father's fault, because he was busy working. In that situation, it was not our okay. He can't go because I can do it alone. Let's go to the front. Then, when I changed, I think I lived a few days of dream with him. Those were a few good days because the relationship is not just from bad days. The person is there for a few days, putting on a good boy face, but over time, some climbing and some violence in our relationship. Music. One day, I was working at the time, and sometimes I'd get a little weak. It was a difficult situation. I couldn't go because I could do it alone. We went to the front, and then I changed. I think I lived a few days of dreams with him. It was a few good days. In a relationship, there are good days, but there are also bad days. The person who is there for a few days puts on a good face, but over time, there are some violent outbursts. One day, I was at home with him. He was outside on our balcony with his cell phone. I was in the hack, so I saw a message from a girl. I got the password of his cell phone. I went to look at his cell phone and saw that 2 days before, he had betrayed me with a girl in an old apartment of his. I found out that a lot of other people had betrayed me too. I was at home with him, and he was outside on our balcony. His cell phone was in my room, and I saw a message from a girl. I got the password for his phone, and I went to look at it. I saw that 2 days before, he had betrayed me with a girl in an old apartment of his. I found out that I had already changed a lot of things to that apartment with him. I confronted him, and he was really aggressive with me that day because he had already drunk alcohol. He said that he had betrayed me, and I said that I couldn't argue with that. I really betrayed you. I betrayed you, and you saw it. Sometimes I was weak. I had already made some changes to the apartment, and I confronted him about it. I said that he didn't have to worry about betrayal because I didn't feel that way. He was really aggressive with me that day because he had already been drinking. He said that he had no more arguments. Now you really know, I betrayed you. I betrayed you. You can't say that you don't. I betrayed you. You saw it, but it was a time when I was sometimes weak. You know that at that time, it was full of problems, and you didn't help me. You kept pressuring me, saying that I should look for a lawyer and such. I got that business on my head. I felt humiliated. I went to betray you with the girl. I got my things, some clothes, and such. I came back home, and my sister and my dog came back to my house. Then I think I remember. I think I don't remember that. I felt a feeling on the day at the time, it was really tough. Instead of helping me, you kept telling me to find a lawyer. I felt so embarrassed. I went to betray you with the girl. I packed some things, clothes, and such. I came back home, and my sister and my dog greeted me. Then, I remember feeling a sense of guilt. I don't remember that day, but I remember feeling upset. I had taken some things to the apartment, and there were 2 rooms, one with my things and the other with his things. I locked the door to my room, where I kept my things. I locked the door and came to my sister's house. I felt like I had done something wrong. I said, I think today he will do. I was in the apartment, and I had brought some things with me. There were 2 rooms, one with my things and the other with his things. His clothes didn't fit, and I locked the door to my room. I locked the door and went to my sister's house. I had a feeling that day that I closed the door. I said, I think today he will do something inside this apartment. I filmed the apartment and said, look at the apartment. It's here. The other day, I came to my sister's house. It wasn't at night, it was about 2:30 in the morning. He called me very drunk because every time he had a drink, he stayed the whole night calling us. So that day, I was with my sister. I think it was about 3 a.m. when he called me several times. I remember the other day, I was in my sister's house, and she called me. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and she was very drunk. She had a habit of calling us in the morning, so I wasn't too surprised. I think it was about 3 a.m. when she called me. She sent me several messages and a picture of a bedroom door that was broken, with my things inside. I remember asking her, how did you break this? How did you open this door? She said she was very drunk and that I didn't know who she was. I remember that the other day, I saw a broken door, and I recorded it. After that, I started to be a little afraid of her reactions. I remember that after I saw the broken door, I went back to I sent him a message with a picture of a broken bedroom door and my things inside it. I remember asking him, how did you break this door? How did you open it? He said he was very drunk and spoke to me. He said, you don't know who I am. I remember that the other day, I saw a broken door and recorded it. I also started to be a little afraid of his reactions. I remember that after I saw the broken door, I went back to my sister's house. I came back to my house, and my sister asked me to talk to her. I remember that before leaving to talk to my sister, I described no agenda. So, I spoke. I called her, Lilai, and spoke to Lilai out to talk with so-and-so. I said, if I don't come back, please pay attention to me. I remember that I wrote this in my agenda and left it on my bed. I said, if something happens, I went to my sister's house late at night. When I got back to my house, she asked me to talk. I remember that before we talked, I said I didn't have an agenda, so I spoke. I called her, and I spoke to Lilai, saying, so and so, if I don't come back, please pay attention to me. I remember writing this in my agenda and leaving it on my bed. I said that if something happened, my sister would open it and try to see how I was feeling. I was in a phase of anxiety and tension. I went to talk to him, and then he said that when he arrived home, the excuses were always the same. I was guilty of some situation, and he came home and saw that things weren't there. He was nervous, and he thought he had his things in the door. That's a lack of respect. I locked the door of his house because things weren't there. Sister, I'll start by saying that I was in a phase of anxiety and tension. I went to talk to him, and he said that when he arrived home, the excuses were always the same. I was guilty of something, and he was there when he came home and saw that things weren't there. He was nervous and thought he had his things in the door, which is a lack of respect. I locked the door because things weren't there. He thought I broke the door, but I wasn't aggressive, etc. Anyway, this was always I've recorded several conversations with him saying things like, I'm going to seek psychological help. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm not going to drink again. I'm going to be sober until the end of the year. I'm going to be without alcohol for me to support our house and our dream, and so on. And then I went back to home, all the laps we had. He was once again that charming, lovely boy from the start. I had some really great conversations with him where he said all these wonderful things. He said he was going to seek psychological help, that he was going to stop drinking, that he wouldn't drink at all, and that he would be sober until the end of the year. He said he would be my support system for our house and our dreams. Then, I went back to home. We had all these great moments together. He was that boy from the start, lovely, charming, and loving. He wanted me to be happy. Then, we started talking about buying some other things. He really wanted to have a car and a motorcycle. I wished I had many other things, and we talked about buying things and going on a trip to organize them. But these great dreams only came after some bad times during our honeymoon. I felt trapped because every time I came back with him, I came back with dreams of buying something. I was so happy at last. I had this dream of buying all kinds of things, like a car or a motorcycle. I wished I had so many other things, and then we could buy them together. But these great dreams only came after some tough times during our honeymoon. I felt trapped because every time I came back with him, I came back with dreams of buying something. I felt trapped in the relationship. Another time, it was like this when we bought the apartment that was in my name. It was like this when we bought a car because it was a really extreme situation. I'm going to talk about how confused I was. He always put pressure on us to acquire things. We ended up acquiring and then passing things. I think a month or two later, he did something very bad again, and I saw myself trapped there with I was in a situation where I had to pay for everything. I was worried about how I would manage, and sometimes I felt trapped. I couldn't see a way out because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm leaving now and moving into an apartment in my name. I don't know how I'll pay the $5,000 debt each month. I just have to figure it out. I've got a lot on my plate right now, and I'm not sure what to do. I feel like I'm drowning in my emotions. Sometimes, I feel stuck because I'm not sure how to find a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to leave now and move into my own apartment. I don't know how I'll pay off the $5,000 debt I'm currently carrying. I have to find a way to make that payment, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I've always been very careful with my money, and I've always enjoyed paying for my own things. But when I left to live with my partner, I didn't take anything with me. I left one thing that I knew I could trust, my bed. I left my pan, but I left my heart. I'm leaving here because I'm scared, and I'm not sure how it will be. Then I had faith in his promises to me. It was a simpler time. I looked and spoke to my God. I had so many problems. I thought, I will believe what he is telling me. I will try once again. You know that's okay. He hurt me, all right. He was disrespectful to me, but I thought that if I was more kind, more affectionate, and more delicate, and if I took care of his things and helped him more, it would change. But the more I showed him love and affection, the more he became aggressive and manipulative. I remember how good he was. I remember situations as soon as they happened. One Saturday, I stayed home while he was working. I liked to fix the house, leave the house all nice and smelling nice, and lighting a candle and incense. He also arrived when he said he would, all cute and tidy, waiting for me. I remember one day that he arrived and looked and spoke. I said, I cleaned the house. He said, I cleaned it, but what is this here on the floor? You didn't clean it right. And I was sitting there waiting for him with Jen on the table, and it was like this every day. It made me feel a little insecure every day. I was always criticizing a little bit of the things I did. It depended a lot on my help for his work. He had a lot of difficulty doing some things at work, so he always asked me for help. We got on aided because I think there was a moment when I looked at our relationship and said, my God, I'm so tired because I have to take care of him. At times, I felt like it was my duty as his mother, because I had a bond with him. Sometimes, I felt like that. I think that if I get out of his life, this guy will die because he doesn't manage to regulate his emotions. He doesn't know what happened in his life. He couldn't handle anything, he got very nervous. I want to drink. I want to get out of this. I'm very nervous, and I had to come. He said, with wisdom, things are not like this. I know all will work out. Let's look for another way. I had to regulate his emotions, help him at work, take care of the house, and be a woman that he had to present to others. I had to be a smiler, a presenter, so he could bloom in this chaotic environment. My house was always a bit of a mess, and it wasn't the kind of place I'd want to relax. I'd arrive thinking, my God, what will happen today? More or less, it was like this every day. I was almost confused. He couldn't be aggressive or nervous. Love was sometimes on the sofa, but there was a tone of aggression if I washed the pan. I passed the strongest bush in the pan, and it was a reason for the fight because I was not taking care of things. When it comes to home life, being in an abusive relationship is like walking on eggshells all the time because you're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, which might upset your partner. You avoid conflict because you're just too tired to deal with it. You don't have the energy to engage in a fight with your partner, who's always trying to fix a fight by criticizing and cursing you. You look at them and say, When you're in an abusive relationship, it's like you're always walking on eggshells, afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, and it's exhausting. You avoid conflict because you don't have the energy to deal with it. But when you're in a relationship, you're so tired that you can't even muster the energy to fight back. Another thing that always left me feeling sad was an episode that I never thought I could forget. I've always loved celebrating International Women's Day because it's a day to honor the amazing women in my life. I want to celebrate this day with my girlfriends. I'm so tired that I can't even fight anymore. I'm so tired that I can't even return with a fight. There's one episode that I'll always remember, and it's so sad. It's an episode that I never thought I could forget. It's an episode that's very important to me, and I love celebrating International Women's Day. Since I understood the importance of this day to me, I wanted to celebrate it. I always put it in our relationship. I say, look at the women inside. I want to go out to dinner every year. He managed to ruin the whole year. Every year I stayed with him, I never celebrated Valentine's Day. I didn't even have a day that one day. Before I discovered his betrayal, I celebrated Valentine's Day on the day of the 12th. I discovered a betrayal on the 11th, and there was no celebration. I was at home. I went to church. I've always thought about our relationship, and I've tried to be open with myself. I've tried to look inside myself and understand what I want. I want to go out to dinner every year, but he's been putting a lot of strain on our relationship. Every year, I stayed with him, and I never celebrated Valentine's Day. I didn't even have a day that I could call my own. Then, I discovered a betrayal on the day before Valentine's Day. I had a hard time celebrating Valentine's Day on the day itself. I was in my home, and I went to church. I cried, and I came home. I lay in bed and slept on my birthday. I remember that when I arrived on my birthday, which is on the 4th of October, a month before the speech, I thought to myself, this isn't the way to celebrate a birthday. People should do this, or they should do it in such a way. I spoke, but I like to go to restaurants that I want to go to. This is my tradition. I like. Breezy. I cried, and I cried, too. I came home, and I lay in bed and slept on my birthday. I remember that when I arrived on my birthday, which is on October 4th, a month before the speech, I thought to myself, this is not how I want to celebrate my birthday. People should do this, or they should have a party. I like to go to restaurants, and this is my tradition. They already started, but I won't. No one has done this because you don't call your friends. You're isolated, and you don't have any friends. You need to call your friends. I like to go with my family because I like more expensive restaurants. My friends can't accompany me, and I don't want to end up embarrassing them, so I don't even invite them. Finally, on the day of my birthday, I was already exhausted, apathetic, and tired. I remember the year before last Christmas, when we had a really nice time together. I thought we'd do the same this year, but he didn't want to spoil the surprise. I thought I'd go to my mother's house, where it would be quiet and calm. I remember that, on the way there, he started to bring up some things in front of his mother and sister, who managed to spoil the surprise for everyone. I remember that last Christmas, we had a really nice time together. I thought we'd have the same this year, but I was wrong. I didn't spoil him, but I was still hoping for a quiet Christmas at my mother's house. Unfortunately, when we were driving there, he started talking about some things that had happened at my sister's house. It made the whole family nervous, and it was a very embarrassing moment. Then, we had a very stressful Christmas and New Year's, and it was also the anniversary of when we started dating 2 years ago. He always managed to ruin everything and make me feel really sad. I remember my birthday last year, when he was going to take a trip to work. He went to a resort and stayed there for a few days. Christmas was a tough time for us. When he got to my house, he started talking about traveling, and the whole family got nervous. He embarrassed us all, and it felt like we were going to have another year of not so special occasions. I remember my birthday from the year before, when he was going to take a trip to work. He went to a resort to stay away, right? That day, he already got into a fight before he left home. We were a little more financially stable at that time, and I started not sending his clothes to the laundromat so as not to have this. I remember I had a white shirt that I went to the supermarket to buy. I bought a lot of clothes, washed his shirt, and left it intact in the wardrobe so he could do this trip. Then, I remember that on Monday he was going to travel. I remember that on Monday, he called my front desk. We were going to work together. He called the laundry room in front of me and said, "Look, I'll send some clothes there because I'm with some white shirts that aren't as white as I'd like, so I'll ask you to get a hold of me. I'm finding that I'm a little weird here at home." Okay, beauty. I didn't even touch myself. People went to work, so he was going to travel on Friday. I remember that on Friday, he called my place, and we were going to work together. He called the laundry, and he spoke to me like this: "Look, I'll send some clothes there. I have some white shirts that aren't quite white, but I like them. I'll ask you to pick them up. I'm finding them a little weird here at home. Okay, beauty? I didn't even touch myself. People went to work, so he was going to travel on Friday. He called me right at his work. I was already at home. He called and said, you can get the clothes that you wanted, so they're for me in the concierge. The laundry was delivered, and I will travel. I said, okay. When I go down to get his shirts, I see that one of those shirts was washed once, and he had sent it to the laundry. He said that the clothes I had washed were good, and that they were yellow, not the way he liked them. For me, He called me at work, and I was already home. He said, you can get the clothes I left for you at the concierge. The laundry had been delivered, and he was traveling. When I went down to get his shirts, I saw that they had been washed and sent to the laundromat. He said the clothes I had washed were yellow and good, and he liked them. It was very painful to talk about. I'm here at home, sacrificing for something that isn't mine. Sometimes I stop being close to the people I love to take care of their things and return things they sent to Levant. I still talk about my front, which wasn't enough white. He could have sent it, but he didn't need to humiliate me like this in front of people. I felt very sad that day, and then I remembered that I was really hurt by what he said. I'm at home, working hard to support someone who doesn't even know what's going on with me. Sometimes, I put my own needs on the back burner to take care of others, and I'm left with nothing. He sent Levant, and I was upset that he didn't think I was doing enough. He could have sent me, but he chose to embarrass me in front of everyone. I was really sad that day, and then I remembered that he went back home, and he was traveling to the resort. He was already in a really tough spot at home because he made me sad and cried on my birthday. It was really close, and he was supposed to come back on Tuesday night. But when he got to the resort, there was a fight, and he didn't want to talk to me. I didn't call him, and he didn't answer the phone. Sometimes, I tried to find him. He went back to his home, but he was going to have to travel to get to the resort. He arrived at the resort on Tuesday night, and he was in a very bad situation at home because he made me sad and cried on my birthday. It was very close. He was on Friday, and my birthday was on Wednesday. He would return on Tuesday night, and then he went to the resort where there was a fight. He didn't want to contact me, and I didn't call him. Sometimes, I tried to search for him. He said that I was disturbing him, that I was leaving, and that he was nervous because of his work. He couldn't stay there all the time. I was questioned, and I said, hey, but yesterday I saw some photos of you on the internet that you were up to 5 hours in the morning at the resort. He said, people here are on the network. I need to make contact with people only. I had no information because he didn't give me the things that were happening at the resort. He said I was disturbing him, that I was leaving, and that he was nervous. He said he couldn't stay there all the time, and I was questioned. I said, hey, but yesterday I saw some photos of you on the internet that showed you were up until 5 a.m. in the resort. He said, people here are on the network. I need to make contact with people only. I had no information because he didn't give me the events that were happening in that resort. So for those who have already been betrayed twice, it obviously awakens millions of triggers in your head. You're at home in a situation, since he already left home with everything very bad. And then I remember that he arrived on my birthday. My birthday was on Wednesday, and he arrived on Tuesday night. I had gone to get my mother on the bus on Tuesday. He arrived at my house on Tuesday night. I was on the road, and he was without the home key. He sent me a lot of audio messages cursing that if you've been betrayed before, it's natural to feel a lot of emotions when you're with someone. I remember that he left on Tuesday night, and I was at home on Wednesday, the day of my birthday. I had gone to get my mother on the bus, and he arrived at my house on Tuesday night. I was on the road, and he was without the key to my house. He sent me a lot of audio messages, cursing at me. I never understood why he didn't wait for me. I had been at home, tired, and finally the door was locked. I remember that I sent an audio message to him, still talking. I said, look, tomorrow is my birthday. Please, my family. Then I'm going to get my mother. She'll give me a peaceful day. Tomorrow will be my birthday, he said. Oh, so okay. Sorry, my love. I'll be sorry. So it will never happen again. And then I was really disappointed that he didn't wait for me. I was so tired when I got home, and I remember telling him, "Look, tomorrow is my birthday. My family is coming over," he said. "Oh, okay, sorry, my love. I'll be sorry. It will never happen again." Then my mother came over right away. We slept the other day. We went out to lunch, and I enjoyed the day with my mother. Tonight, we left, went to a restaurant, and came home. I was so sad and tired. I looked at him and said, "This was for me, a person who did more questions about my date of birth. I know that I brought my calm on my birthday to prepare for my happiness on my birthday. He did everything else." Mother came to visit, and we had a great time sleeping the other day. We went out to lunch, and I had a lovely day with her. This evening, we left, went to a restaurant, and then came home. I was so sad and tired. I looked at him and said, "This was for me." He asked me about my date of birth, and I knew that he was trying to make me happy on my birthday. He did everything to make this day special. I remember that I started crying a lot in bed, and he was there with me. My mother was in the bedroom next to me. Then, I remember that he said to me, "Carla, you need to work tomorrow. You are bothering me." That was another hard hit. I looked at him and said, "I don't want to stay here anymore." I remember the day I tried to ruin this date. I cried a lot in bed, and he was there with me. My mother was in bed next to me. Then, I remember him saying, "Carla, you need to stop crying. You're bothering me." It was another painful moment. I looked up and said, "I don't want to stay here anymore." I remember our room being all mine. I got up and went to the bathroom, where I cried more. I didn't want to disturb him in bed, so I lay in the room I slept in at home. We put on a social mask of happiness, but deep down, we're not. I was at home, and everyone was wearing a happy face. I had a wonderful time, and I think it was very important for me. I said, "I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to, and I can't." I was overcome with sadness, and I couldn't find solace in my room. I tried to be strong for my mother, but it was difficult. I felt like I was wearing a mask of happiness, but deep down, I was struggling. Everyone was so kind, and I really appreciated it. It was a turning point for me. I felt like I didn't want to be in this situation anymore. I didn't want to cry every day because of someone who didn't respect me. Even though I had experienced violence and aggression, it felt like a betrayal. I felt like I was reaching my limit. I couldn't take any more. I decided to take control of the situation and try to end the relationship. I went back to my therapist and my psychiatrist. I started taking medication again because I was feeling very depressed. I'm struggling to find balance in my life. I'm dealing with a lot of emotional pain, and it's affecting my mental health. I've been in a relationship that's not healthy for me. I've been dealing with violence, aggression, and betrayal. I've reached my limit. I'm not going to let this relationship continue to affect my well-being. I've been working with a therapist and a psychiatrist to address my depression. I've been taking medication to help me feel better. I've also been thinking a lot about the things I have in my life. I have a car and 2 motorcycles, and I'm trying to organize everything in my head. I've been thinking about the financial aspects of the relationship. I've been thinking about the 10 more payments I still have to make on the car. I've been thinking about the money I have in the bank. I've been thinking about how I'm going to manage from here. I've been thinking about what would happen if we were to end the relationship. I was feeling pretty down and out, so I decided to go back on my meds. I started thinking about all the stuff we had, like our car and motorcycles. I was trying to keep it all in perspective. I told myself, "Hey, I've got 10 more payments left on my car, and I've got some money saved in the bank." I decided that from then on, I wasn't going to buy anything else, and I wasn't going to go into debt. I was determined to finish what we started, and I didn't want to get into a bond. I left here that day, and that was that. It was all very clear in my head, and I started to prepare myself. I didn't say a word to anyone. I didn't want to get involved. I tried to make things better, to bring some good into his life. But the violence just kept escalating. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I can be your partner right now. I'm afraid to be in a relationship because I'm worried about my safety. I left here, and I don't want to be in a relationship because I'm afraid of being hurt." I was in a lot of pain, and I couldn't tell anyone. I tried to make our relationship work, but it just wasn't enough. The violence got worse and worse, and sometimes it happened every 2 months, and then every week. He started drinking a lot, and he was having a hard time at work. He was taking all his problems out on me, and I was there for him 24/7. I was stressed from helping him with his mental health and taking care of the house. It was a lot to handle. I was getting sick and tired of his daily mood swings. I think you're good at dealing with problems, but if you're dealing with someone who's unstable, it can make you feel insecure. I didn't feel safe around him. There were times when I was afraid to go to a show or a restaurant with him because I was afraid of. It's hard to believe, but I couldn't take it anymore. I was getting really sick and tired of his daily outbursts and mood swings. I think you're right that you can handle problems, but if you're dealing with an unstable person, it's hard to feel secure. I didn't feel safe around him at times. I was afraid to go to shows or restaurants with him because I was afraid he might get violent. There were times when I went to the restaurant with him that I was afraid he might get into an argument with someone. There are so many situations that make you realize you need to leave. I didn't want it anymore. I needed to get out of there. This wasn't for me. I was always very vain. My mother was a manicurist, and I always made my nails very strictly. I remember there were so many times when he was violent, and I was afraid of him. I remember going to the restaurant with him, and I was afraid of what might happen if he got drunk. There are so many situations that make you realize that you need to leave. I was always very vain. I remember one day, 3 months ago, sitting at home on my sofa, and seeing that my cuticles were huge, my roots were huge, and my hair was huge. I had gained a lot of weight. I looked at myself and said, "My God, look where I am. This is not me. I am at my limit." I made the decision to leave. There was also an increase in violence at home, and when I speak of violence, one day, I was sitting on my sofa at home, and I realized that I hadn't taken care of my nails, cuticles, or roots in 3 months. I had gained a lot of weight, and I looked in the mirror and said, "My God, this isn't me. I've reached my limit, and I'm at my breaking point." I decided that I needed to make a change. However, I also noticed that there had been an increase in violence at home. When I speak of violence, I'm referring to psychological aggression and aggression in general. I don't say that he doesn't come to you with a punch, but sometimes he arrives home drunk and hits you. Sometimes he pushes you onto the couch. Sometimes he does other things that I don't even want to talk about. We know the hell that we live inside our house, right? I remember that. I'm talking about violence and aggression. I'm talking about when someone gets drunk and comes to your house and hits you. I'm talking about when someone comes home drunk and hits you or pushes you onto the couch. I'm talking about when someone gets so drunk that they assault you. It's always left me feeling anxious. It took a long time to come back, but I did it. I confronted him every time he did something wrong to someone or to me. He punished me or he punished me with silence. He stayed away from me for a few days. He was distant. He did some very bad things to me. I'm sure you can imagine how anxious I was. It took me a long time to come back. I remember every time I confronted him, he would do something to someone or to me that I didn't like. Then he would punish me, or he would stay away from me for a few days, or he would be very cold and distant. He even did some very bad things to me. Then, he would work and not come home. When I arrived at 10:11 at night, I called him and said, "Where are you?" "I'm with a friend of mine." "I'm here. I'm ready." "Let me come in," he said. "I'm already here. I'm ready." I didn't come home. I didn't answer the phone. You called me drunk. It was a very difficult time. He didn't come home, and when I arrived at 10:11 p.m., I called him. I said, "Where are you?" "I'm with a friend." "I'm here. I've arrived. Dinner is ready." He didn't answer my phone or return home. He started calling me drunk, saying that I was going to kill myself and that it was my fault to call him at dawn. He said things like, "I'll kill myself, and the fault will be yours. I'll get this car and run it under a truck. You will only see tomorrow. You will watch me inside a casket. You will be watching me," and that to me was very upsetting. I don't even know how I look several days later. I don't even know how I'll put on clothes and work because he did this during the week. In fact, I had to be on top of my game at work, dealing with a lot of things to resolve. When I brought it up to him, he said it was my fault because I had done that. We had arrived at a point where we were both losing our sanity. I had pointed out that I was doubting things that I had done. You know, this was. I'm not sure how I'll manage to get ready for work and go out with friends. I had a really tough week. I was trying to be on top of everything, and when I went to see him, he was all about blaming me. I felt like I was losing my mind. Am I really feeling this way? Is this normal? I went online to find someone who could help, but it just made things worse. I'm so confused. People were always telling me to climb higher. I couldn't escape. When we were together, he started treating me badly. He was really aggressive with me in front of others. I'm not sure if I'm feeling guilt or confusion. I entered the internet to find a person who did this. This is normal. I'm in a lot of chaos, and I'm thinking about the head of and how there was a lot of climbing in the home in many situations like that. I couldn't hide from more people. When we were in LA, he was already starting to treat me badly in front of people. He was already aggressive with me in front of my friends. Later, he started being harsh with me now even in front of friends. He started treating me badly if I talked to my family, causing me a lot of discomfort. I felt humiliated. I felt terrible in front of people. I was ashamed sometimes when I went out with him and listened to the things he said, so I preferred not to leave home sometimes. I had a really hard time understanding why he was being so harsh with me in front of my friends. It was even worse when he was being harsh with me in front of my family. It made me feel humiliated and uncomfortable. I felt ashamed sometimes, and I would go out with him and listen to the things he said, so I would prefer to stay home. Sometimes I would leave with him because there was no one else around. It's hard to see that we're entering a hole. First, you see that you're entering a hole, and then it gets even worse. You can see that you're inside a hole. My God, I'm in an abusive relationship. Is that abusive? Is he abusive because you stay? You stay confused. I say that there I'm so grateful for the help I received from my psychologist. She helped me understand that I was carrying a lot of emotional baggage, and I was in a difficult situation. I had a hard time understanding what was going on, and it was confusing. But with the help of my psychologist, I started to feel more clarity. She helped me understand my emotions and offered me support. I was also taking medication for depression, which helped a lot. I started to feel more motivated to take care of myself and make some changes. I wanted to find some friends and talk about my feelings, but I never had the courage to share what I was going through. I was going through a lot, and it was all very confusing. But as I started going back to my psychologist, things started to become clearer. She helped me a lot by encouraging me and giving me tools to start thinking for myself. My psychiatrist also asked me to start taking my medication again because I was very depressed. I think that helped a lot. I started wanting to do things for myself and make some friends, but I never had the courage to talk to them about what I was going through. No one knew that I was going through it. I was screaming inside, and he would say that I was ugly, that my clothes were ugly, that I was looking like a fat person, and that I was ugly. I could never tell anyone. People always carry very heavy things inside them, and therapy helped me a lot with that. I was going through a really tough time. I couldn't tell anyone, but I knew I needed help. I was dealing with some really tough stuff, like the way he would scream at me, call me names, and say that I was ugly. He'd say that my clothes were ugly, that I was looking like a fat person, and that I was ugly. I couldn't tell anyone, but I always felt like I was carrying a heavy weight inside me. Thankfully, I found therapy, and it really helped me. I started to work on my silence. On my way out, I knew I was doing things a few days at a time, organizing my finances, and asking for a lot of improvement. I still believed that we could have a child, that everything was going to work out, and that he would change. I still believed in his good side, and I tried to rescue that good part of him. The more I tried, the more I rescued. He offered me the worst, and I knew that I needed to let go. I went through a period of therapy and started working on my silence. On my way out, I knew I was doing things a few at a time, organizing my part financially, and asking for a lot of improvement because I still believed that we could have a child, believed that everything was going to work out, believed he would change, and believed that he had a good side that I could still rescue. The more I tried to rescue that good part of him, the more I saw it. He offered me that was worse, and that was the end of our story. For me, it was definitely a day that I was at my job, a Monday. He called me around 5 p.m., saying that he was going there to search, but that he didn't go every day. He said he would be able to go there and that he would get me. In fact, he didn't call me. He sent a message saying that he was going to search, and then I left work. I'll tell you what happened. It was a normal Monday. I was at work, and around 5 p.m., He called me. He said he was going to go there, but he didn't. He asked if I would go instead. I said sure. He told me he'd be right there. I left work and saw his car. I got in the car, and he was very drunk. It was the first time he'd ever done this. He started to threaten me, saying he was going to kill me. He started screaming horrible things at me inside the car. He was driving very fast, speeding through people. I work in a very busy area of Sao Paulo. There were a lot of people around, and he was speeding, saying that he was going to kill me and that my mother deserved to bury me. I was very afraid. There were a lot of people at the time in Sao Paulo, and he was speeding up the car on top of them. He was saying that he was going to kill me that day and that he had a knife. He said, "So your mother deserves to bury you. I will kill you today. You will know who it is." He was very drunk, and I was very afraid. That day was a horrible situation. At the time, I remember that he stopped the car. I got off the car and saw that he had already hit the car door next to him. I was full of bruises, and as I was on the other side, I entered my side. I didn't see that the side of his car was beaten. I remember that way until we got home, and he stopped the car. I saw this situation. I remember that I was praying and talking, trying to calm him down. I remember the moment he stopped the car. I got out and saw that the car door next to him had been hit. I was badly beaten, and when I got to the other side, I saw that it was also beaten. I don't remember seeing that, though. It was only when we got home and he stopped the car that I saw it. I remember praying and talking to try to calm him down. I spoke to him about God's love and tried to rescue him. I told him some funny things about his mother to see if he loved AC, but he was shouting, "I'll kill you." I told him, "Today I'll kill you. You will see. I accept the things you do to me." Anyway, I remember that he went to turn the car around, and I was sure it was going to fall over. I still picked up the wheel and said, "Thank you, God." We got there. I tried to talk about my mom's love and calmly tried to rescue him. I told him that I loved him, but he was shouting, "I'll kill you." I told him, "I accept the things you do to me." Anyway, I remember that he went to do a curve, like that. I was sure the car was going to fall at that time. I still picked up the wheel and said to it, "Then thanks to God, we got there." When we got home, I put him to sleep. I took his cell phone and saw that on this day he had left with a girl. There was a picture of him naked with a call girl in bed. I took a picture of that cell phone. I took a picture of the photo and put it to sleep. We had a trip programmed, and I still went to do this trip because it cost very expensive, but I was talking about as soon as I entered, and I entered this. At home, I put him to sleep. I took his cell phone and saw that on this day he had left with a girl. I saw a picture of him naked with a call girl. I took a picture of that phone. I put it to sleep. We had a trip planned, and I still went because it cost very expensive, but I was so tired. As soon as I entered, I met a character. When I went down the trip, I closed the door and spoke to him. Now, I don't want more. I remember that he was still confused. I said, "I don't want that day you did this." I still asked him, "Do you remember what you did?" He said, "When I drink, I don't remember." I said, "So you know what our relationship is every time he drank?" He said he didn't remember either. I met a character on a trip that we closed to. I spoke to him, but now I don't. I don't want to go there. I remember that he was still confused. I said, "I don't want that. You did this on that day." I asked him, "Do you remember things you did?" He said, "When I drink, I don't remember." I said, "So you know what our relationship is every time you drink? You say you don't remember things." Then I started to record some things he said to see what he had done the other day. That day, I managed to record him threatening me inside the car. The other day, I showed him the recording and said, "Look at what you did right the other day." When we sat down to talk, I said, "Look, what you did." I said, "I understand the severity of this. You understand that you could have killed millions more people who were on board." I remember things a bit differently now. I started to record some things to see what he had done, and that day, I managed to record him threatening me inside the car. I showed him the video from the other day and said, "Look at what you did right the other day." When we sat down to talk, I said, "Look, I understand the severity of this. You understand that you could have killed millions of people who were on the street there." He said, "But I was drunk." I remember saying, "This does not justify many times you have done it. It wasn't the first time he had been making this scene of putting me in the car drunk and saying that I was going to kill me. Only that day was so bad because he accelerated a lot. He was carrying in front of the people. It was finally a scene of terror, and then, when I went to confront him, he was very scared. He said, "But I was drunk." I said, "No, you weren't. This won't happen again. I have a photo of this betrayal. I'm telling you everything. Who knows? I can forgive you." I remember him saying, "I left with a boy." It was his daily life. He always left, and he couldn't even tell me how many call girls he had out. This was his problem, but he was going to. He said no, but I'm determined this won't happen. I told him I spoke and showed him the photo of the betrayal. I said, "Honestly, tell me everything. Who knows? I'm ready to forgive you." I remember he said he left with a boy. It was his daily life, and he couldn't even count how many call girls he'd slept with. He said this was his problem, but he was going to seek help. I tried to think I was still going to fall into his manipulation, but that day, when he started screaming, I woke up and heard him say, "Your mother deserves to bury you today. I will kill you." The other day, I was brushing my teeth and said, "People, if I don't get out of here, my mother will bury me because I will get out of here or he'll kill me." In these outbreaks of I'm so grateful that I found an apartment where I live today. I'm so thankful that I was able to escape the vicious cycle of violence. I'm thankful that I was able to leave. I remember when he started screaming, "Your mother deserves to bury you today. I will kill you." The other day, I was brushing my teeth and said, "People, if I don't get out of here, my mother will bury me. If I don't get out, or he kills me, then I'll get out of here." I said, "If I don't leave now, I'll know. I'll die." Then I remembered that I had this conversation with him. We sat down and divided our things. It was not an easy conversation. It was not an easy time. I lived with him for 2 months. I was still inside an apartment. I was scared, and I thought, if I don't leave now, I'll never leave. But then I remembered that conversation we had. We sat down and shared what we had. It wasn't an easy conversation, and it wasn't an easy time. I lived with him for 2 months, and during that time, I think he was at his most violent. I was locked in the room, so he'd come home sometimes and shout and hit things in the house. He'd call me ridiculous and record videos of himself doing that. Those were very bad days. But I found an apartment where I live today. I managed to get out of that cycle of violence. I still say thank you. I'm so grateful that I was able to maintain my sanity during such a tumultuous period. I had experienced psychological and physical violence, as well as heritage violence, and yet I was able to find a way out. I had faith in a better life, and I knew that where I was wasn't right for me. I had a dream, I had love, and I believed in a prince. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. I'm so thankful that I was able to find an apartment where I can live today and break free from the cycle of violence. God, I'm so grateful that I was able to find a way out of all that pain. I had so many experiences with violence, both mental and physical, and with heritage violence. But I kept going, believing that life could be so much better. I had a hard time fitting in, but I kept hoping for a better place. I believed in love, in a prince, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. Thankfully, I was able to leave that place. I know my story is one of resilience, and I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned. Life brings miracles, and one of the best things he brought to me was the gift of purpose. Despite having gone through a tough phase, I'm grateful for the life lessons I've learned. I was diagnosed with cancer and lost my dad, but I never lost hope. I'm so grateful that I was able to leave that place and start over. I know that my story is something I'll have to build from the ground up. But there's a silver lining in every cloud. One thing he brought to my life was a sense of purpose. Despite having gone through a rough patch, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to learn from it. I was diagnosed with cancer and lost my dad, but I never lost my sense of purpose. I had a very difficult time, but I'm grateful that I had the strength to overcome it. I'm grateful that I was able to share my story and help others who are going through a difficult time. I'm grateful that I was able to find a sense of purpose and a community of support. I was with someone when I passed, and I was really struggling. I didn't know what to do or who I was. My ex was getting in the way, but then I met this person, and he helped me find my purpose. I'd lived through so much, and I felt ashamed of being in an abusive relationship. I felt embarrassed to tell people, and I looked for support online. I even thought about reaching out to a priest or therapist because I was too scared to tell my friends or family. When I left that relationship, I started using Instagram. I didn't have any intention, but I noticed that people were reaching out to me for help. It made me realize that I had a dream from a long time ago. I wanted to work with people and help them. I've always had a strong maternal instinct, and I decided that I want to go back to school and graduate in psychology to help people in this area. I want to contribute to ONS and other institutions that work in this area. Every day, some 3 or 4 people enter my page on Instagram and ask me for help. I'm with my husband here. He is very supportive. I'm depressed and don't know what to do. My ex is catching up to me. I'm so excited to get back to studying and graduate in psychology, which I think will help me work in this area. I really want to contribute to ONS and know institutions that work with this. And I think every day, 3 or 4 people visit my page on Instagram, here on the Liberation Diary, and ask me for help. I'm with my husband here. He's my support system. I'm a lot depressed right now. I don't know what to do, and my ex is catching up to me. My son is my rock. He helps me. Every day, I take at least 2 hours to sit and help these people who are living in horrible situations. There's a phrase I always say, one day at a time, and let's go. I believe in what I will see. I know there are many chapters in this, and this doesn't summarize my life. No matter where I am or where I'll end up, this is my son's God helps me, and I'm so grateful for that. Every day, I try to take at least 2 hours to sit and help these people who are living in horrible conditions. There's a phrase I always say, one day at a time. I believe in what I will see, and I know that there are many chapters in this book of my life, no matter where I am or where I'll end up. This is the only thing I think about every day. I think about it because it's his, but I'm not him. He tried to transform today for 5 months after I finished this relationship. The first months were sad, confusing, and bad. I was even afraid of loud sounds that looked at the door. Sometimes, a dream car passed, and I was afraid. I didn't recognize me or look at myself in the mirror. I spent many days feeling, I'm always thinking about him, and I know he'll always be with me because it's his. I'm not him, though. I tried to transform today for 5 months after I finished this relationship. The first few months were tough. I was sad, confused, and even afraid of loud noises. I even had dreams where a car passed by, and I was afraid it didn't recognize me or look at me in the mirror. I spent many days feeling angry at the world. I felt disgusted, and I remembered the scenes I had already experienced. It disgusted me, and I really got sick a few days later. I think I got sick of feeling disgusted. After that, I think I can see the steps. After the time of disgust, I felt apathetic. I saw myself as apathetic. I think I spent about 3 weeks like this, in automatic mode. I'm sorry if I've upset you. I had a lot of anger towards the world, but it passed after I started feeling disgusted. I remembered the past and felt disgusted, and it took a few days. I got really sick of it. Later, I think I understood the steps. After the disgust, I felt apathetic. I saw myself as apathetic, and I think I spent about 3 weeks like this, in automatic mode. I spent the month in automatic mode, and today, I don't know what the next phase will be, but today is one of those phases that I've already experienced. I say that everything is a routine that I put myself on to do. Every day, I do things that are uncomfortable, and then I take care of my house, my dogs, and my little plants. This self-care routine reminds me of who I was before I was with him. Today, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to put on some makeup, do my hair, and take care of my nails. I'm going to buy some new clothes, too. I haven't done this in a long time, so I'm not sure what the next step is, but I'm excited to see what happens. I'm going to take this time to rediscover myself and get back in touch with my true self. I hope that the next step is a good one. Today, I'm embracing my true self. I'm doing things I used to love, like putting on makeup, doing my hair, and taking care of my nails. I'm feeling beautiful and confident. I'm also buying clothes that I didn't get in a long time, and I'm not sure what the next step is. But I know that this stage is all about rediscovering myself and being my own dating partner. This is the phase I'm in right now, and I hope the next phase will be filled with joy and growth. I don't want to dwell on the past, but I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me. Now, I'm focusing on the present and moving forward. I think this phase, when we're still in the relationship, is one of the most challenging moments because it's uncomfortable and makes us feel sad. But it's also a time for growth and learning. It's about taking a decision to leave that captivity and embrace our true selves. I'm starting to feel like I'm moving on from the phase of not remembering what I went through. I don't want to think about the past, but I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned. Now, I'm in a new phase of my life. I'm still in a relationship, and it's hard when people feel uncomfortable around you. It's hard to feel sad when you're supposed to be happy. It's hard to make a decision to leave a relationship when you don't have energy or strength. Sometimes, you don't have a job or a child, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The only thing I'm sure of is that I was reminded of who I was before I entered this relationship. I was a dreamy girl. I know it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're going through a tough time. I know you're feeling stuck, like you can't see a way out. But I want you to remember who you were before this relationship. You were a vibrant girl with a bright future ahead of you. You had so much energy and so much to give. You were doing so many things at once. But for some reason, you stopped being that person. You look at old photos and wish you could be the person you used to be. You miss that vibrant, energetic you. You've been dreaming of living your life to the fullest for a long time. But what I want you to understand is that this relationship isn't going to define your life. It's just the beginning. It's hard for us to make this decision, isn't it? I was a social butterfly with a lot of friends and energy. I was doing a lot of things at once, but I wasn't the same person I used to be. There were so many days when I looked at photos and thought, this is me. I missed that person I used to be. I had been dreaming for a long time to live a lot of things, and then you showed me a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard to see that the person who is there doesn't love you. It hurts, but it will be a difficult decision. She will be liberating, and there will be many hard days after this decision. There will be more difficult days than good days, but in the end, after all this turmoil has passed and all this turbulence has passed, you will be sure that it was the best decision you ever made. You will no doubt leave hell and live your life. It's hard, I know. When you realize that the person in your life doesn't love you, it's painful. It's a tough decision, but it'll set you free. After this, you'll face challenges, but you'll be stronger because of it. You'll have good days and bad days, but in the end, you'll be glad you made the right choice. You'll leave hell and start living your life to the fullest. You'll have quiet days of calm and peace, and you'll enjoy your coffee in peace. You'll remember the things you like eating bread with their girly or other little things that make you happy. After leaving an abusive relationship, it's normal to feel a bit overwhelmed. But you'll get through it, and you'll find your rhythm. So have the courage to remember who you are. Life is full of quiet days, calm and peaceful. Take your coffee in peace, and remember that if you like it, you can do it. Do you really like eating bread with egg girly, or is it just something you've always done? You know how to remember the things you like. After leaving a very abusive relationship, even the days of peace can be a bit overwhelming. But we understand that this is normal for life. Yes, it's normal to have a calm rhythm. So, have the courage to remember who you are. If you try to rescue your friends, your family, or your little things, you'll have to impose a routine every day, even if you don't want to. Take a bath, wash your hair, or do something you like. Do this for yourself every day for a while, and in a couple of months, you'll already be doing this calmly and with love. You'll remember who you are, and you'll have the strength to leave. If you're trying to rescue your friends, if you're trying to rescue your family, or if you're trying to save a little of the things you enjoy doing and impose a routine every day, know that you don't have to do it alone. Take a bath, wash your hair, do something you like, and do this for yourself. Do it a little at a time, over the course of a few months, and you'll find that you're doing it with love. You'll remember who you are, and you'll have the strength to leave. You'll be more prepared to leave, and this will follow. I like this story, so please subscribe to the channel. All Thursday has new history here, so don't forget to activate notifications. If you're going through a divorce or in a relationship that's not working, please come to our community. I created an exclusive community for women to help them go through divorce without so much suffering or trauma. I'll leave more information here in our description.